Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Shark Talk, where I chat with the ever-inspirational Madison Stewart, otherwise known as Shark Girl. Now, Madison is a passionate shark advocate, an activist, an award-winning filmmaker, and she has dedicated her life to shark conservation. Although she doesn't like the term conservationist, and in this episode we'll find out why, and we'll also get a real glimpse into Madison's world, as well as finding out about Project Hugh, a truly innovative approach to shark conservation that Maddie set up. And as always, I will be asking Maddie some of your questions too. So let's get stuck in here on Shark Talk. Maddie, good evening. Welcome to Shark Talk. So excited to have you on the show. You're such an inspiration. And calling from Australia. So how's it going over there? Because crazy times we're all living in. How are you coping?
I cannot complain. We're in a little bubble here. I've got surf, I've got sharks, so not too bad.
Very good to hear. Now, I want to spend this chunk of time with you really getting stuck into talking about your approach to shark conservation. It's quite a unique approach. It's incredibly interesting, so we will talk about that. But also just to get a little glimpse into your world, all the really great stuff, but the tough stuff as well. And I'm sure there's a lot of both, and all the great stuff in between. So what makes Madison, I guess, and obviously to find out about all of your work. But first of all, I know a lot of viewers probably know lots about you already, but for those that don't, could you just tell us a little bit about your journey into shark conservation and filmmaking as well?
Absolutely. So I think it all started for me when I was quite young. My dad got me diving with sharks, and it was always going to be something that I wanted to do. Immediately obsessed with sharks. It's all I wanted to be a part of. I wanted to film them, make documentaries about them. Then when I was 14 years old, I started to see pretty drastic decline of shark populations on the reefs here in Australia. And that kind of spiraled me into conservation. I was in my first documentary when I was 18 called Shark Girl. And from then on, it just became like this movement for me of just wanting to really do something to help sharks in Australia. So I've got no official qualifications. I didn't even finish school. I literally just dropped out, got a video camera, started filming when I was really young, and since then it's taken me all around the world, been involved in a few different productions and been able to, I hope, raise a little bit of awareness about stuff that's going on, and now it's pretty much living and breathing shark conservation for me.
When I was doing my research, I saw a talk that you gave, and you were saying how we need to change the stereotype of what a shark conservationist looks like, or a conservationist hero looks like as well. And just could you tell us a little bit more about that? So, you know, perhaps what the traditional sense of a shark conservationist is, and then your kind of image, I suppose, and your background.
Absolutely. I personally don't like the term conservationist. I feel like it should be normalized. It should be something that everybody is involved in. I think that we immediately think of someone with dreadlocks sitting in a tree in a tie-dye t-shirt playing guitar, and that's our perception of conservation or activism. At least here in Australia it is. They call us greenies. So there's definitely that perception of it, but I think it needs to be so ingrained in our society that it's something everybody is involved in. I think there is a lot of confusion that conservation is something that has to be taught in university, or you have to have qualifications to do it, which is not the case at all. Conservation will literally either fail or succeed based on the amount of passion, the amount of drive you have to make something a reality.
Yes, that's a very good point. And now more than ever, we need more and more people engaging with conservation, but with the issues that we all face and that will eventually impact every single one of us. So you're absolutely right. It needs to be normalised. It needs to become more mainstream, and you are doing a great job in helping that along. And we will talk now, as I said, about your approach to shark conservation. So I want to find out how this evolved, because now and we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail shortly, but essentially you're making friends with shark fishermen, which is not necessarily what people may expect. And I wondered, was that your approach from the get-go, or was it something that slowly evolved? Because I can't imagine that straight away you thought, right, let's make friends with these guys and try and make a difference that way.
Right? I'm so glad you asked that question. It evolved. It took me so long. I've been doing this since I was 14. I've been yelling at fishermen, being hardcore, being really angry and really passionate about one particular thing. And it took me a really long time to learn that anger is not going to be a tactic in saving the world. and the way that I approached things needed to change. And it was actually quite interesting. The very first shark hunter that I befriended was Mark the Shark in Florida, this like really hated shark hunter. And I did it because I saw everyone else's approach. It wasn't working. And then I started to get a lot of pushback from other conservationists. And I was like, hold on, these people are on my side and they're not even being kind to me. So it was kind of like a moment for me. It was like something switched in my brain, and I was like, screw it, I'm going to go be nice to the people doing the bad stuff, because not even the good people are being nice. And sometimes that's not going to work, but 90% of the time so far for me, it's been an in their life, which is like changing something from the inside. And especially in situations like the one in Indonesia, which we'll discuss, it's a necessity, and it's something that we should have been doing from the start, because we approach everything as if people are out there to kill sharks and destroy the things that we love, when in reality, for them, it's a whole different story. So approaching something with kindness is not only a far more sustainable tactic, but a far more effective one.
Yes, yes. And it is so easy to polarize things into good guys and bad guys, and it's just not that simple. Actually, I want to break down what you've just said there into two things, really. First of all, you mentioned the pushback from the shark conservation community. Can we unpack that a little bit? So what exactly was being said, and how, in what way were you being targeted by them?
I remember when I was quite young and my first documentary was getting traction, and I reached out to quite a few people wanting to help, and most of them were really amazing women I looked up to in the industry, and I just didn't hear back from them. And it was also just a case of people like me hearing that someone had disliked me that I'd never met, that I'd previously looked up to. And it was just like this whole thing in my head when you enter conservation and you're really passionate and you're so hopeful, and you got bright pictures of everybody working together and it's all amazing, you're fighting the same fight, and then you hit this moment where it's like reality. It's not always like that, and this is with everything, but particularly in conservation, you find that not everybody fighting for the same thing wants to be fighting on your side. So that was a bit of an eye-opener for me, and I guess in a way it was a good thing, because that made me change my tactics to what everybody else was doing, which led to a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now.
And I have to say, actually, recently I've had some experiences and that I can relate to what you're saying, and it is an eye-opener because, on the face of it, we're all in it for the same reason. We've all got the same goals in mind, but it's very hard to bring everyone together and get that collaboration that we really do need to make big changes. The second thing I wanted to unpack, though, from what you said, was this story of your friendship with Mark the Shark, because incredible what you managed to do with that. So first of all, how did you go about making friends with him? And did you feel any sort of conflict inside on that journey?
It was really interesting because I was in Miami and a shoot that I was going to do in Mexico had just been cancelled because our cover was blown with the fisherman that we were going to go work with. And so the shoot got cancelled and I was stuck in Miami, and I was like, what am I going to do? I'm this little Australian kid in Miami, and there's not much for me to do there. And I was like, hold on, that Mark guy operates here. So I was like, oh, I'll just reach out and just see, on the odd case, maybe I can go interview him. So I sent him an email and I was like, hey, no lies, nothing. I was like, my name's Madison, this is what I do. I don't like what you do. Can I interview you? And he wrote back and he said, come out on the boat tomorrow.
Wow.
And it's so funny because when I released my first film with him, everyone was like, how'd you get on the boat? Did you lie to him? What did you do? And I'm like, I talked to him. I sent him an email. And of course, I still strongly disagree with what he does and vice versa, but I see so much more of it. I have so much more insight. I was able to take his kids diving with sharks for the first time, and I'm able to maintain that relationship with Mark, which gives me an understanding of the recreational fishing scene and just gives me so much more of an in a system that I'm trying to change. Sometimes you have to use the master's tools to take down the master's house, and I think it's a really, really, really amazing thing. It's not that I was special or clever in any way to do it. It's just that I took that risk, and there was no conflict for me because, you can be angry or effective, and I chose to be effective at that point.
And another thing that you managed to do was, as you say, you took his children out diving with sharks, and by the end of that trip, I think it was his daughter, she loved it, didn't she? And she sort of said, you know what, I want to save sharks rather than fish for them, which was, that's the ultimate goal, I imagine. That must have been music to your ears to hear that.
Yeah, and it's just like, when you're a kid, you worship your parents, and how could we expect anything else of those beautiful little kids? And, in their eyes, their dad's their hero. They're never going to respond to someone that's tearing down their dad. And I'm not even pretending to be Mark's friend. Like, I am his friend. I spend time with that family, and I know them, and I it's eat with them and hang with them, and it's such a strange thing because they're doing the opposite of everything I was raised to do. They're killing the animals I love, but why would I waste time breaking bread with the people on my side? I don't know. It's still such a trippy thing to me to think that I did that. Like, I just look back and I'm like, man, I'm weird. Like, the situations I get myself into, I swear. But that led to so many things. Being able to talk to Mark and being able to know Mark led to so many things, and that's just one of many examples of me being able to infiltrate that side.
Yes, and I imagine it gave you the foundations to get going with the project that you run now, which I'll let you introduce us to. Tell us about Project Hugh.
Project here, he is the Indonesian word for shark, so it's literally Project Shark. Didn't give it a lot of thought because I didn't think it would go anywhere, right? I started it a couple years ago by going to Indonesia. I went to this place that I had been a year earlier to film a documentary called Blue. So I starred in this documentary. They took me to this place, we filmed, and then we kind of left. And I always had this like nagging feeling of like I didn't do anything there. I just went and exposed these people. I didn't do anything. So I wanted to go back, and in no way was Project Here my idea. It's something that's been replicated around the world where people take fishermen and engage them in tourism, and they flip the investment in the animal being alive. So I've seen it happen before. The first place was Isla Mujeres in Mexico. So that made me want to go back and just be like, I'm just going to try it here. I'm just going to see what's going to happen, and again, one of those crazy ideas. And a few years later now, I have 6 of the 52 fishing boats that operate in the second largest market in Indonesia working in tourism instead of fishing sharks.
Wow.
And when I can take one of these boats out of the water, I can save on average more than 400 sharks a year, employ 5 men, help several members of several families, give them a better, safer income, doing something that also saves sharks. So that's Project Here. We're trying to improve life above and below the water.
It's brilliant. Really, really good. And the video, so on the website, you can see the journey, really. There's plenty of films and a lot of information on there. And not to focus too much on the negative and the sad and things like that, but Maddie, I have to talk to you about this. So I watched the video, which was, I think it was 2 weeks that you spent on the fishing boat with the fishermen in Indonesia. And it was an incredible piece of filmmaking because it absolutely showed that kind of that conflict that you must have felt, where you got to know them as people, you got to know their families, you were having fun with them on the boat, there was laughs, it was really a great kind of jovial atmosphere. And then the next minute, I just, oh my God, I just wanted to give you a massive hug because I couldn't believe that you were able to have that inner strength to watch them, pulling these sharks onto the boat, and you were surrounded by, all these dead bodies, gorgeous tiger sharks and all the rest of it.
For me, it was incredibly mentally taxing. It's not like I haven't seen dead sharks before and become very accustomed to that sight, but it was more the sense that like the fishermen, like I was at sea for 2 weeks with 5 fishermen. Like it's crazy. Like we were places where I had to hide below deck because the other fishermen couldn't see that there was like a tourist on their boat. Like it was really wild scenarios, and they wouldn't let me miss a meal. If I got scared of the big waves that we were in, they'd put me in a certain part of the boat and hold my hand. Like they worried when I didn't sleep. They never woke me up when we had to leave somewhere early in the morning. Like I was so well taken care of. I was family to these men. And then I had to wake up and watch them kill my other family. And there was just this one moment where I had just filmed a really viral shot of the shark getting hit on the head with a wooden stick.
Yes.
And they do this to kind of stun the shark. It's like their way of killing it so that it comes on the boat, it doesn't thrash around and it doesn't hurt them, and it just kind of is the quickest way to get the shark dead. And I remember the fisherman doing it who didn't speak a word of English. He was doing it and I was filming it, and because I had my camera, I was so focused. Like without a camera, I would have been a wreck, but when you have that purpose, it helps. And he looked up at me and he goes, "Sorry, Maddie." And it was like the first time I've ever heard him speak English, and my heart just went like, oh, like they know how this affects me, and they're still letting me be here and film it. And it's so conflicting because it's like I love these people and I love these sharks, and they're at war with each other, and I'm stuck in the middle.
It's the perfect microcosm of what's going on, isn't it? And I guess it's hard to look too far into the future. You've got to take it day by day. But what are your goals, in the end with the project?
Look, if you'd have told me 3 years ago that I'd be here, I would have never said, let's think of a name more complex than Project Shark. So I can't begin to imagine where it will be in the future, but I've seen the power that an individual can have there. I've seen what my fishermen are capable of, and I won't stop until that becomes something big and something real. And it's certainly going that way with the momentum. And I don't know, I'm able to do this stuff because I'm privileged. I got to dive with sharks. I got to travel. I can go to Indonesia. I can put my money into tourism. I'm privileged. And it's not our right to judge them for fishing sharks to feed their families. It's our responsibility to create a society where that's not their only option. And I think that motto alone and that idea alone is something that lots of people can grasp and join in on. And public support is what has made Project Heat happen and what will make it keep going.
And how can people support the project? How can they find out more, but also, get behind it and help it to succeed?
Obviously through the website, there's all sorts of things, donations, sharing the film, but the biggest thing is obviously once the travel ban's lifted, come join me on a trip. My trips aren't that expensive. It's Indonesia. Your money's going to taking shark boats out of the water. I put you in the water with the most amazing coral reef. You get to witness the actual fitting happening at the market, and it's the first-hand experience of what's happening there. And just come be a tourist. Come be a tourist on an ex-shark fishing boat.
Yeah, get involved, people. Do it. So I said that we were going to find out a little bit about Maddie's world, get a glimpse. So we talked about some of the tough stuff, some of your amazing achievements, but I want to talk a little bit about the stuff in between. I know on social media, we get to show all the highlights, and also it's clear to see from some of your videos the really difficult, emotionally taxing stuff. But how much of your time is spent in the ocean, enjoying the ocean? How much of it is spent out there on the front lines? Is there a lot of admin? All that kind of stuff.
I think obviously Instagram's an illusion, and I think that a lot of people think, oh, just join conservation, I'll be out on a boat cutting a shark out of a shark net. I think 80% of what I do is behind a computer. I try and do as much in the field as I can, but that's just not a reality. If you want to create change, there's a lot of other stuff you got to do too. Editing films is my favorite thing to do, so I'll never complain about sitting behind a desk and doing footage. One of the most impactful things I've ever done was a genetics and mercury testing of shark meat for sale around Australia. And I found what the seafood industry here was doing, what it's selling, how many infractions there are, how high the mercury content is. And none of that's even on my social media. That was all released in a paper that my friend wrote. So, I guess there's a lot of work behind the scenes. There's a lot of admin, and the time it goes into taking a pretty photo for Instagram doesn't compare to the amount of time it takes to have some substance behind that photo. So for anybody that is getting involved in conservation, and I try and say this on social media a lot, I try and say what you do while you're not getting looked at is going to be the most important of all the things that you do.
You're absolutely right to try and push that message home, because I think it's easy for people that want to get involved and want to help to look at these social media accounts and see their life as so far removed from the successful conservationist lives that you sort of think you're on a different playing field in a way, if that makes sense.
After my first documentary, which was really successful and won a lot of awards and was seen by a lot of people, I went and got a job as TSA at the airport. I was airport security because I was just so over it and I needed money. And it was so funny because I remember one day Sylvia Earle and her team came through the airport and they recognized me because I just won a film festival in Florida that they were hosting. And they were like, what are you doing at the airport? And I was like, conservation's not paying the bills. This is what I got to do. And people would come through and recognize me and just be so confused. Everybody that worked there was confused. And I really enjoyed being normal for a little while. And, sometimes it's necessary. So we've got to stop idolizing conservationists. And realistically, this is the truth of it. Yeah. Sometimes you got to work at the airport.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I love that story. And that's so true. Conservation, it's a really hard field to make a living out of. And also that's not probably the primary focus. The focus is trying to, get success and achieve whatever it is for the animals that you're trying to protect and the environment. And it's not about necessarily putting food on your table. So yes, you need to do what you have to do, and kudos to you for pushing through. So I've got a few little questions which don't have any particular context, but I'd just be very interested to hear your answers. So first of all, what would your examples be of being brave? What moments have you, in your mind, been brave?
Most recently, I went to a shark fishing tournament in New Jersey, and I was surrounded by Make America Great Again Americans with lots of money and big trucks, and they were very hostile. And I was brave to stay there and film that because everybody knew who I was and nobody wanted me there. And I felt really anxious being there, and I was still there. That was bravery. I think it's brave of me to do public talks. I'm terrified of that stuff, but I know how relevant it is. And I think it's been brave to take a step into the surf community, which often feels like it's at war with the shark community, but is desperately in need of our help and our collaboration. So I think there's a lot of bravery in me sitting down with shark attack victims and seeing the other side of all the wonderful things that I get to do and seeing how the animals I love have impacted people's lives.
So how do you deal with those moments? How do you make yourself brave?
The knowledge that someone's going to see what you're filming, or there's going to be an impact to what you're doing. That's what drives me. The idea that someone is going to be like, I didn't know about this before and now I know about this and I'm going to do something about it. That gives me the motivation and the power to be brave. And I think also one of my favorite quotes is, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? And I think that that's just a really important thing to have in your mind when you're doing stuff, because the reality is, if not you, then who?
It's a great quote. My next question. Oh, this is a bit more of a happy one. Most memorable or special moment shared with a shark? If you can pick one.
Just pick one. Let me just go through the data bank of romantic moments with my favourite animal. I think there was one moment in Byron Bay, actually, where I live, where I am now, and it was my 12th birthday. I had just gotten my open water certification, and I was diving at Julian Rocks, and there was these two grey nurse sharks, or they're called sand tiger sharks or ragged-tooth sharks in other countries, and they were just like hovering, cruising, and I remember just getting to the bottom and then just seeing my first shark like diving, and I will never ever forget how they looked in that moment. And then it was just like me, I felt about this big and the sharks were huge, and I was just watching them in awe, and they just let me be in their space, and to be accepted by an animal like that and to just be able to be close to them was probably the most memorable moment for me, my first ever encounter.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. What has been one of your biggest challenges in shark conservation?
I think one of my biggest challenges in shark conservation, yeah, definitely. Okay, I'll get real. One of my biggest challenges in shark conservation was getting diagnosed with PTSD. And it disrupted my ability to be in the water for a good year. And it disrupted how I behaved around sharks. And in a way as well, I guess that was a blessing in disguise, because it pushed me to do other things like be on land and talk to shark fishermen. But it changed my perception of the ocean. And the thing with sharks is, if there's something that's making you a little bit weaker, they're the first ones to pick up on it. So that definitely reflected in my time in the water. But that was, for me, the biggest challenge.
Okay, wow. And I imagine another example of bravery, to work with that. So thank you for being real, Maddie. Appreciate that.
No worries.
Next question. What is your proudest moment?
What is my proudest moment? I think it's coming up. I don't think it's been yet, but there was one incident, my 26th birthday, which was last year, and I was standing on one of my shark fishing boats watching 6 other shark fishing boats with all my friends on them all head out to the bay where we were camping that night. for my birthday. And my birthday that year had involved taking 6 fishing boats out of the water from fishing sharks and distracting them for long enough to save how many sharks we would have saved from one trip. And I just remember like looking at all of them and thinking to myself, like, a few years ago I was here filming their catch, and now I'm here with them, and the fishermen are buying me birthday cakes. And it was just a really beautiful moment because not only did I feel successful in doing some good for sharks, but I felt like I had done so without hurting anybody along the way, but actually improving their life. And I don't know, that seemed like a really good use of a birthday.
What an incredible image, that's, yeah, wow. The perfect testament to the success of what you're doing.
Yeah, I had a little Titanic moment. I had a little like, these are my boats. Yeah, I got my own fleet. I had to have like a little moment where I was like, oh, I did this. Yeah.
I love that. And actually, don't they fly your flag as well?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. With the hammerhead on it, the Project Hugh flag. Awesome. Oh, yes. Okay, my next question. If you could take one person out with you on a shark dive, who would it be and why? And it could be anyone.
I know Mark the Shark won't come diving with me, so I don't think that matters. That is such a great question. I'm going to have to say my grandmother, because my grandmother, I've come from a very eccentric, adventurous, supportive family, and my grandmother is the only one who has never quite understood what I do and is terrified of sharks and is terrified for me. And I would love her to have that experience, and I would love for her to understand everything that I go through and to not be scared anymore or be scared for me.
And do you think,
provided the shark dive went well?
Yeah, yes, very important proviso there. Do you think that could happen?
I reckon she could snorkel. I reckon she would just freak out. But I don't know. With a lot of willpower, yeah, I reckon maybe it could.
Keep us posted on that one. Top tips for a peaceful, memorable shark dive.
Oh, okay, yeah. Learn about the sharks before you get in the water that you're getting in the water with. I used to do that when I was a kid. Like when I knew I went to Tiger Beach, I was like Googling stuff about tiger sharks, not just sharks in general, but each species has their own way of showing territoriality or being like, back off a little, or I'm grumpy, or I'm doing this. Like tiger sharks like to bite the water. Reef sharks like to, put their pectorals down and arch their back. So all these different things you can learn about the individual species. That'll give you the confidence to know what you're in the water with. Making sure you have the right equipment is important. I see a lot of people get uncomfortable and panic just because their equipment's not the right equipment. Speaking to people who are experienced in taking you on the dive beforehand. If you're concerned or anything, tell them about it. Most people in the shark diving industry are used to people being terrified. They're great at handling it. And I think the most important one in this day and age, don't take a camera. Just enjoy it. Just look at that animal. That memory is going to last a lot longer than a photo on your Instagram is in your head.
Yeah, that is such a good point, that last one as well, because, I remember a dive I went on and I saw my first ever tiger shark and I didn't have a camera. Luckily, my dive buddy did, so that was great. That's the best. That should be added on to the top tips.
Make sure that take someone that has a camera.
Yeah, absolutely. You spoke about what a hero is in conservation in one of your talks that I saw. And I just wanted you to reiterate, really, what kind of ocean heroes do we need now in these times, in this kind of world that we're living in? What kind of a person are we crying out for?
I'm going to piss a few people off by saying this. Obviously we need scientists, we need the whole mix, but activism used to be, when I read about it, when I learnt about it, used to be like destruction of whaling fleet vessels and releasing animals from areas of abuse. And I think it's slowly been transformed into buying a bracelet, which, sucks because I sell bracelets and help Project Hugh. But I just think that it's important that we don't greenwash conservation and activism. So the kind of people the ocean needs now are the people that are going to sacrifice their life for the cause, the people that are going to get arrested, the people that are going to challenge laws and do things that really push the boundaries. Because when the laws are unjust, that's what we need to be doing. And people that are going to go that extra mile, stop doing what's written on paper, stop doing what's accepted by society, and start doing what is right. And that is what we need. Like, the oceans are changing drastically, all the laws and everything happening, it's drastic, it's serious stuff. It needs serious action. It's not always going to be a case where you need to go to uni for this many years so that you can do this. Sometimes it is. That stuff's so important, but at the same time, we need drastic action now. And it's not always going to be legal or on the right path or pretty on Instagram, but it's what we need. We need the drastic revolution and movements that we had when environmentalism was first becoming a thing. But we need that for the oceans, and we need that for animals like sharks. Dolphins get it, whales got it, now sharks need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of people wrote in with questions for you, so it was quite hard to narrow it down. So I will ask the first question from Caden, a huge shark fan. He's very young, doing great things for shark conservation on his social media, trying to spread shark positivity all over the place. So a great advocate for sharks. And he asks 2 questions. 1, what is your favourite shark species? And 2, what can a young person do to help sharks?
I think 1, tiger sharks are my favourite. They just have so much personality. And 2, what can a young person do to help sharks? The first thing a young person needs to do is to never underestimate their power. I was super young when I started, and no one was listening to me, and everyone was like, you're too young to know better. I'd seen a change in my lifetime, and as a young person, that gives you more validity than the adults. So never underestimate your power as a young person. It is your place to be fighting laws and changing laws and pushing for things, because you are the one that are going to see the effects of it when it's already come into place. When you're a little bit older, what's happening now is going to show in the future.
And just on that, how old were you when you started your conservation? And did you have support from friends and family, or was that something that took a while to earn?
I was only 14. Amazingly enough, my dad was the one who was like, yeah, I'll pull you out of school, we'll go dive with sharks. He supported everything. Didn't support conservation. He didn't see there being any need for me to engage with the people that hated the things that we loved. He just wanted me to enjoy the ocean and respect nature. So it was interesting. I didn't have support. I did that all on my own. I did it with opposition from my family and my friends. And I kind of brought them all to the dark side, because now they've seen what I've done and they are surprised by it. And you know what? Another thing for young people, it takes a while. Don't get discouraged immediately. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to yell at a lot of people you shouldn't yell at before you start befriending shark fishermen.
Okay, great answer. Thank you. There you go, Caden. Hopefully a little bit of extra motivation and inspiration for you there. My next question is from Philip. He's got a few questions. So first of all, he's saying it's amazing what you've done for the community and fishermen with Project Hugh. And he wants to know, are you planning on expanding your network and helping more fishermen, fishing companies and communities?
A lot of people ask me this, like, Project Hugh is you can replicate it elsewhere. And I say, yes, you can. I had small connections with that village that helped. And I have the time to put in that village. But it's taken a lot of time and a lot of energy. And I don't see myself being able to do that more than once and still live a functioning adult life, because I'm barely living a functioning adult life as it is. So I think that as opposed to me replicating it, I'd like to help and inspire other people to do so in areas that they may have that connection with, like I had Indonesia.
Yes, okay. So almost like I don't want to use this word franchise, that's not the right word, is it? But yeah, you've kind of created a blueprint.
Yeah, essentially, be a franchise owner and have a Project Hugh somewhere where and I've had people do this to me and write to me and be like, I want to do this here. And, it might work a little bit differently. It might be a different situation and different things that you can do. It's going to change with everywhere you go, but the concept remains the same. Sharks are worth more alive, especially to low socioeconomic villages that are being preyed on by overseas countries that want cheap shark products. There is potential there for this to be replicated elsewhere.
His next question was, how did you build that relationship with the fishermen and the fishing community, and how did you choose where to go and where to focus that relationship?
So I didn't choose it, chose me because of that documentary that I was in. Obviously, the fishery is a famous place for people to go and film and to take pictures of the sharks that have been killed. So a lot of people go there. A lot of people go there and film there and then just leave. So I was one of those people, and that's how I chose that particular place. Before that, I would have never stepped foot in Indonesia. You would never have seen me there because I was like, I'm not supporting the world's largest fisher sharks and blah, blah, blah. So that's interesting how that found me too. I was lucky enough to find the right fisherman, and he didn't trust me at first. So at first I told him that I was a surfer and that I needed him to show me some local breaks that nobody else had been on to get him to hire the boat. He had no idea who I was for the first few months of our relationship, and then I just slowly proved to them again and again that I was coming back and that I was bringing tourists and that I was going to help them. And I helped them with other things. I helped the school so that everybody in the community had a reason to trust me and not just him. It took a lot of time, a lot of calculated contributions, a lot of being wise towards their culture as well, a lot of understanding and respecting their culture. Speaking small, tiny, like fragments of Arabic with them was like an interesting thing as well because their religion, and it was just tiny little things and time and respect. And I think a lot of people now have recognized how special my relationship with them is, because it's not, and everybody told me it was not going to be possible for a young foreign girl to become a boss of a shark fishing Muslim community in Indonesia. So it took time, but I was just lucky to find the right fisherman to help start that.
Mm. And didn't one of the fishermen name his child after you as well?
Yeah, she turned 1 last month.
Wow. See, that's just incredible, isn't it? And just out of interest, so how long did it take you from the moment you thought, right, okay, I'm going to try and do this, to getting it going, securing that relationship and starting this Project Q?
I met him in May, the fisherman, the first boat that I ever hired, and I ran my first trip with tourists in September the same year.
Oh, wow, okay. And when was the trip, when you went out for the 2-week fishing trip? Where did that slot in?
That was October last year. So that was after more than a year of working with them. And it was an unfortunate time because it was like I was unable to have more trips for the rest of the year, and they were like, we have to go fishing. And of course, I'm never going to be like, okay, you're not allowed to go fishing. I let them go fishing when they need to, when I can't. If I could provide tourists as much as I needed to, I could, but I depend on people booking on the trips. So I let them go fishing, but I was like, can I come? And for them to trust me enough to take me on the boat. And it was the first time in that year that they'd had to, because we were there all the other times. So it was a special moment. And for me, it was important to see what I'm stopping them doing. It was important for me to experience it, see how they do it, and to understand it. I can't just come in and be like, you must stop this now, because I said so. It was kind of their way of showing me what they were going through, so I knew better how to help.
And it makes sense that trip happened recently, because you can see that relationship. It's so evident in the film, how well you will get on, the respect you have, the understanding that you have with each other. It was very clear. So, yeah.
And it's important to note that it was never about me trusting them. It was about them trusting me. And that's something you have to think about. Like, are we doing our job as conservationists when the shark fishermen can't trust us? When the shark fishermen that we should be using our privilege to help, to separate, to stand between them and the people exploiting them, if they can't trust us, are we doing our job as conservationists? Nobody. I remember sitting across from my head fisherman and telling him how much a shark fin sells for in Hong Kong. And it's more than he makes in an entire trip. And before he met me, we were the bad guys and the fin buyers were the good guys because they were their employers. Now we're their employers and the fin buyers are the bad guys.
Yes. What was the reaction when you found out the price?
You'll have to watch the next film.
Ah, okay. I like it. Yes. All right. We'll do, definitely. Also, just talking about teasers, I saw something on social media about the hooks that you might be selling. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I need to make sure that I am fully capable of being their income for one particular boat, the very first boat I hired. I need to make sure I can take care of them in times like COVID, that I can financially support them no matter what happens. And once I can do that, my first investment to them will be to buy their fishing equipment. So right now when I use their boat, one of the conditions is that their fishing equipment has to be on board. That's how I know no one else is using it. That's how I know the hooks aren't getting set and the sharks aren't getting caught. And I get to show it to my tourists. It's cool stuff to look at. So one day when I can be their income to fully decommission that boat and know that it's never going to fish sharks again, I'm going to buy all their hooks. It's only about $300 Australian. And then I'm going to sell them for a lot of money. And you can have one of these hooks that's been catching sharks for however many years, and you can hang it on the wall in your house, and you can know that that boat that hook came from is not going to catch another shark for as long as it exists.
That's amazing idea. Next question from Tom Conway Gordon. How much success or traction are you seeing in convincing current shark fishermen to turn to shark tourism as a means of revenue?
It started to get to the point where they're coming to me and they're asking for it. The first thing that I did when I started this project was figure out the numbers of how much I pay them compared to how much they make fishing sharks. And if they have a good trip fishing sharks, they could potentially make more than 27% higher than what I pay them for tourism. So I brought this up with them and I said, why do you still work with me if you can make more? And the only thing he said in response was accidents happen. So the amount of dangers that they're exposed to at sea, the potential for getting arrested for catching protected species, all the things that they have to go through, being separated from their families for 2 weeks in rough seas on these sketchy little boats, that's something that they don't want to be doing. So the opportunity for them to engage in something different, and they're such celebrities. They love tourists. They love being the center of attention. They love showing you the coral reef. They love making you meet goreng. They love it. They love practicing their English. They'd rather be doing that. They'd rather be interacting with us and sharks any day.
And, that also brings up a point where, a lot of times in conservation and things like that, people say, okay, so you care about the animals. What about the people? Don't you care about people? This is the perfect example that it is possible to care about both.
And for me, that was never my intention going into this. I was like, I'm just going to trick some fishermen and save some sharks, and now I'm screwed because I care about the people too. Like, my life is so much more difficult now. I feel like I have a family that I have to keep fed.
You do. So, you have a child named after you who's 1 year old.
Literally, that's so much responsibility. I just want to be the auntie that goes away and comes back once a year with crazy stories, but now I'm like responsible.
No, it's brilliant what you've done. It really is. And there's more I want to talk to you about, and I don't know how long we've been talking now. So if at any point we are able to reschedule another chat, I'm definitely going to do that with you to talk about the other elements of what you do.
I would love to do another one when I'm finished working on the film I'm currently working on, which is about shark attacks being increased by human activity, which would be a really cool topic to talk about because it's something I can work on while I'm stuck here at home with COVID. So I'd love to talk again, and I'd love to have more questions from people to answer.
Okay, we will absolutely make that happen. And yes, that is a brilliant topic to address, 100%. Maddie, thank you so much for your time. And on behalf of everybody watching, thank you for all that you do for the sharks in our oceans as well.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody that is watching, and feel free to reach out. And yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm so distracted by all the cool shark stuff in your background and your cute cat that keeps running through the shots.
But, no! Tiggy making a cameo. Everybody out there, keep sharing the shark positivity. Like and share, subscribe if you liked Shark Talk and this particular episode. And Maddie and I will be chatting again soon. Maddie, thank you so much. And goodbye, everybody. Thank you for watching.